breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And warm-up for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. Joining me in segment number 2, we're going to have Tanner Kern aboard. He does amazing work over at DraftKings. We're going to be discussing what he's all noticed here in the first few weeks of the season from the AL East. He was at the Boston Red Sox game on Sunday, so we're going to be discussing a little bit about what he's noticed with the Red Sox, and we'll dive into the Monday card in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GNN_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please just send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Find that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we had a fun day of baseball on Sunday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Yankees just completely clobber the Brewers. A combined 30 runs in the last 2 games for the New York Yankees, 15-5. They take down the Brewers. Now, there's a questionable interference play that led to 7 runs for the New York Yankees in the 6th inning, but for the Brewers, you need to get those outs, and for the New York Yankees, trio of home runs in this one, as Jansen Junk lived up to his name. He gave one up to Anthony Rizzo, home run number 5 of the campaign for Rizzo, as Junk gives up 4 runs over the course of 2 innings, and then you had the starter in Tobias Myers give up the other 2 home runs, goes 5 innings, giving up 4 runs in total, as going deep off of him, Aaron Judge, he's found himself 6th home run in the campaign, and Anthony Volpe, home run number 3, while Marcus Stroman, not the start he was looking for. He gave up 4 runs over the course of 4 innings, giving up a home run to Jake Bauers, his 2nd home run in the campaign, and for Bauers, he pitched the best inning of the game for the Brewers. He was able to supply a scoreless inning as Abner Uribe gave up 5 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and Elvis Figueroa gives up 2 runs in a third of an inning as well. But Yankees bullpen was solid. You had Ian Hamilton give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Michael Tonkin, Caleb Ferguson combined for 2 scoreless. You have Ron Benanaccio give up a run in 1 and a third innings, but Victor Gonzalez scoreless inning of his own. So the Yankees do find a way to be able to get the job done, and for the Atlanta Braves, they find a way to get it done as well. 4-3, they get the win in 10 innings, as the Guardians, they were looking to be able to take 3 out of their last 4 in this one, and they were looking to be able to win the series overall, but were unable to do so. As for the Cleveland Guardians, you had Ben Lively give you a relatively okay start in terms of the runs he didn't allow, but not a lot of length. 4 in the third innings, he allows just 1 run. From there, Nick Sandlin is able to give you a power of outside the bullpen scoreless. Hunter Gaddis had a little bit of gaff in this one, gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning, but Tyler Beatty, Scott Barlow, Cade Smith all supply a scoreless inning before Emmanuel Clase gives up an unearned run in the 10th inning, as the ghost runner from second, Ronald Acuna Jr. is driven in on an RBI single to end things. As for the Atlanta Braves, Bryce Elder, he gives up 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings, walked 4. He continues to be one of the luckiest pitchers in all the big leagues. You had Aaron Bummer from there not live up to his name. Gives up 1 run in 1 2/3 innings. Nothing great, nothing terrible, but AJ Mitchell, Rossio Iglesias, Tyler Madzik all supply a scoreless inning, and it's been interesting. The Guardians have actually been one of your top over teams in all of baseball. 15 overs, 11 unders, and 2 pushes, but no over here. It's the best over team in all of baseball as of right now. That's the Baltimore Orioles. The Brewers, going back to the game from a little bit before, 17 overs to 10 unders for them, so they've been an overwhelming team. But for the Orioles, they got overwhelmed by the Oakland A's. 7-6, Oakland finds a way to be able to get it done, as it was a home run in the 9th that turned out to be the difference maker, as it was number 2 of the campaign for Kyle McCann. McCann, he goes deep off of Craig Kimbrell. Shock, surprise, surprise. Who comes in, he doesn't get a single out, and he gives up that 2-run bomb. So there was that. Albert Suarez did not have the start that he was looking for. He gives up a home run, goes 4 innings in total, allowing 4 runs along the way. For the Oakland A's, going deep off of him was Seth Brown, his 2nd home run of the campaign, and then Tyler Nevin. He gets his 2nd home run of the season that comes off of Danny Kaloum. Kaloum gives up a home run in 2/3 of an inning. Keegan Aiken, 2 scoreless innings. Jacob Webb, he goes a third of an inning scoreless, and Ynier Cano, Dylan Tate, they both supply a scoreless inning. And for the Baltimore Orioles, they were able to supply some power as well, as Paul Blackburn gives up a trio of home runs. You had Ramon Urias get his 1st home run of the campaign. Ryan Mountcastle, his 4th. Adley Rushman, his 4th home run of the season, as Blackburn gives up all 6 runs in 4 innings, 3 home runs, and then the bullpen from there went to work. Kyle Mueller, Austin Adams combined for 3 scoreless innings, and then TJ McFarland, Lucas Ursech both give you a scoreless inning apiece. So Oakland giving you a relatively good effort right now, and you got a good effort from the Blue Jays on Sunday as well. One of your better under teams in all baseball as of right now, as they get it done against the LA Dodgers 3-1. For the Blue Jays, by the way, 18 unders to just 11 overs as far as the season. As for the Dodgers, they go 0-9 with men in scoring position. Lone form of offense was Freddie Freeman getting his second home run on the campaign off of Kevin Gausman, who looked much better in this start. 1 solo home run surrendered in 7 innings. Yimi Garcia, Tim Meza, they combined for a scoreless inning, and Jordan Romano a scoreless inning of his own, as don't call his name, Alejandro Kirk gets his first home run of the season. That comes off of Michael Grove, who he gave up 3 runs in 2 innings, and from there, everyone else was fine. Ryan Yarbrough, 4 scoreless innings as a bulk guy. Alex Vezzi and Nabel Christmas, they both give you a scoreless inning as well, but nothing doing for the LA Dodgers on this day. One of your better teams at being able to put runs up on the board. Your top under team in all baseball is Seattle. 20 unders, 7 unders, and a push. They're able to get the pitching that they desire, but the bats could not get online. 3-2, they lose to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Brandon fought his way through 6 innings, 11 punch-outs, does allow a home run along the way. Going deep off of him, you had Josh Rojas get his 3rd home run season, but past that he was pretty superb. Joe Mantiply, Ryan Thompson, Kevin Ginkel from there all supply a scoreless inning, and then Christian Walker, he's able to get his 5th home run in the campaign. That comes off of Logan Gilbert. For Gilbert, he allows 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings before you have Trent Thornton give up a run in his inning of work. Gabe Spire, pair outside the bullpen scoreless. Taylor Cicado, he's able to give you a scoreless inning as well, but the Seattle Mariners getting back online with regards to the offense, not so much on Sunday, though. The Padres and the Phillies, though, they were being able to pound out some runs, as the Phillies, they get an 8-6 win over the Slam Diego Padres, as Taijuan Walker, he goes 6 1/3 innings in his first start off the injured list, and didn't look good. He gave up 6 runs, including 2 home runs. Going deep for the Padres, Jake Cronenworth, 4th home run on the campaign. Luis Campusano is 2nd, but bullpen at his back. Junior Marte, Jose Alvarado, they both supply a scoreless inning, and Jeff Hoffman gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And fortunately for the Phillies, you had a trio of home runs. Bryson Stott is able to go deep twice off of Michael King, his 2nd and 3rd home runs of the campaign, and JT Realmuto, his 5th also off the King. And for the King, he looked more like a peasant in this one. 6 runs surrendered in 5 1/3 innings, including all 3 home runs. From there, you have Tom Cosgrove, who's having a miserable year. Give up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Wandy Peralta gives up a run in his inning of work, though. You had Stephen Kolek and Yadi Los Santos both supply a scoreless inning, but for the Phillies, they find a way to be able to get it done. And the Tampa Bay Rays have all of a sudden become an over team because their bullpen has been so bad, but they get swept by the Chicago White Sox. White Sox entered into the series with 3 wins. Now they've got 3 in the last 72 hours. 4-2, they take down the Rays. As for Zach Little, this wasn't on him. He gives up 2 runs in 6 innings. You do have from there Manuel Rodriguez, give up 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings, and Erasmo Ramirez, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but this Rays team is not generating offense the way that they did a season ago. Isaac Paredes has been solid, 7th home run season. That comes off of Eric Fetty Wap, who had himself a nice showing, 8 1/3 innings, allows that home run, 2 runs in total. From there, you have Jordan leisurely get the final 2 outs of the game to be able to get the job done, but at the very least for the Tampa Bay Rays, they aren't the Miami Marlins, who got up 7-0 on the Washington Nationals at a Patrick Corbin start, and forget about the full game, they don't even win the first 5. They lose to the Washington Nationals 12-9 as they allowed a whopping 9 runs in the 4th and 5th innings. For the Miami Marlins, this was not what they were looking for out of Ryan Weathers. 6 runs surrendered in 4 innings, including a home run. Going deep for the Washington Nationals, it was Nick Senzel for home run number 4 of the season. And he gets number 5 out of Anthony Bender. Bender gives up 3 runs over the course of his inning of work. From there, Birch Smith gives up a run in an inning. You had Brian Hoying give up 2 runs in his inning of work. Emmanuel Rodriguez in his MLB debut, a scoreless inning, and Declan Cronin was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. But for Miami, they put up 9 runs and they lose as Jazz Chisholm, he's able to get a grand slam in the first inning off of Patrick Corbin, his 3rd home run on the campaign. And for Patrick Corbin, gives up 7 runs, 4 of which were earned over the course of his 4 innings. And from there, the bullpen held it down. Jordan Weems does give up 2 runs in a 1/3 of an inning, but Derek Law, 2 scoreless innings, Kyle Finnegan, a scoreless inning, and Hunter Harvey, 1 2/3 innings scoreless as well. Our DK Network write-up streak is 7 as the New York Metropolitans get it done against the St. Louis Cardinals, 4-2 the final. And for St. Louis, you had this team go 1 of 12 with men in scoring position, and somehow the Mets were worse. 1 of 16 with men in scoring position, and the Mets down to to their final out and final strike. Harrison Bader, RBI single in the 11th inning before Mark Vientos, the hero, he goes deep for home run number 1 of the campaign off of Matthew Liberatore, and also had Lance Lynn give up a home run to Francisco Lindor. 5th home run season for Lynn, gives up that home run over the course of his 5 innings over Ryan Fernandez. From there, 2 scoreless innings. Giovanni Gallegos, 2/3 of an inning scoreless, and then Liberatore, he comes in for the extra innings, 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, surrendered in his 3 innings, and for the St. Louis Cardinals, they just couldn't get to Jose Quintana. Quintana, a really nice start. 8 innings, giving up 1 run. From there, Edwin Diaz gives the team a scoreless 9th inning before Reed Garrett in the 10th and 11th innings gives up an unearned run along the way. So that was very nice for us, and this was nice for the Detroit Tigers. 4-1. They take down the Kansas City Royals. For the Royals, Michael Wacha went Waka, dying Pac-Man voice for him as he gives up 4 runs in 5 2/3 innings, giving up a pair of bombs as Jake Rogers, his 2nd home run of the campaign, and home run number 1 from Wenceel Perez. From there, bullpen was able to do their part. Nick Anderson, Will Klein in his MLB debut both give you a scoreless inning, and Will Smith gets jiggy with it and out of the bullpen scoreless, but nothing doing for the Royals as Drake Skubal was pretty amazing. 1 run surrendered in 7 innings before Shelby Miller, Jason Foley, they hold down the fort, scoreless 8th and 9th innings, and for the Detroit Tigers, all of a sudden, 4+ runs scored in 9 out of their last 12 games. So, taking note there. And for the Royals, 18 unders, 9 overs, and just 2 pushes thus far this season. Who else has been good to the under? The Houston Astros, as they hold the Rockies to 2 runs in Coors Field, which I think on a normal ballpark, that's like -3 runs. The Astros, they get the win by a count of 8-2, as Framber Valdez off the injured list. Not bad. 2 runs surrendered in 5 innings. From there, Rafael Montero, Brian Presley, Ryan Elsley, Josh Hader all supply a scoreless inning, and for the Astros, they get a trio of home runs in this one. Kyle Tucker, along with Jose Altuve, both get home run number 7 of the season off of Austin Gomber, and Gomber got gombered up by Jeremy Pena as well. His 3rd home run of the season. For Gomber, he filled 7 innings, giving up 4 runs, those 3 home runs. From there, Jake Purd gives up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning in the 8th inning, and from there, Nick Mears has to get 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but for the Rockies, they get 7 total hits, and they go 1 of 3 with men in scoring position in Mexico City. Absolutely embarrassing for them. And the Colorado Rockies, they have 7 wins, 1 more win right now than the Chicago White Sox. The San Francisco Giants, they are trying to get back to 500, and they find a way to get the job done against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 3-2 the final, as for the Buccos, not a lot of scoring opportunities here, as Jaron Jones, he does give up 3 runs in 5 innings, including a pair of home runs going deep. For San Francisco, Mikey Yastrzemski, his 2nd home run of the season. Then Mr. Thairo Estrada gets home run number 4 of the season. Bullpen from there does their part. Luis Ortiz, he's able to supply 2 scoreless innings, and Kyle Nicholas, he's able to supply a scoreless inning as well. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, Keaton Winn, he gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. From there, Eric Miller, Ryan Walker, both supply a scoreless inning, and Camilo Doval, he was able to come in for an inning. He gave up a run, but still able to sew things up and is able to get it done there. The Minnesota Twins, over the last 48 hours, have now scored 27 runs. They absolutely put it on the LA Angels, 11-5 the final. As for Reed Detmers, he got off to a nice start to the season. This was not what he was looking for. 9 hits, 5 runs surrendered in 5 innings. From there, Adam Simber, scoreless inning. Matt Moore gives you an out of the bullpen, but Luis Garcia give up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and 2 unearned runs given up by Zach Kristofak in his MLB debut. For the Angels, you were able to get a pair of home runs. Noah Chanel, home run number 2 of the campaign off of 1. Pablo Lopez, and Luis Renifo also off of Lopez. His first for Lopez gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings. Hasn't had a great season, giving up those 2 home runs. But from there, bullpen was pretty solid. Stephen Okert, 2 scoreless innings. Griffin Jackson gives you an out of the bullpen, and Cole Sands, 1 2/3 innings. He allows a run along the way as well. In the early part of the day, you did also see the Texas Rangers be able to take down the Cincinnati Reds. This by a count of 4-3 for the Redlegs. They did not get what they were hoping for out of Andrew Abbott. Gives up a pair of home runs, 4 runs in total over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Adolis Garcia, his 8th home run season, and Wyatt Langford, his first career home run, up-and-coming prospect for the Texas Rangers. And for Dane Dunning, he got her Dunning. 2 runs, 1 of which was earned. Give it up in 5 1/3 innings, including 10 punch-outs. From there, Josh Shabors gives up an unearned run in 2/3 of an inning, as he was hurt by a pair of errors by Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia. But from there, David Robertson, Jordan Latz, Kirby Yates, they all lend a scoreless inning, and the Reds, they did a solid job with their bullpen as well. Lucas Sims, 2/3 of an inning, scoreless. Emilio Pagan, Justin Wilson, they're both able to lend a scoreless inning as well. As for the Rangers, it's been a little bit hot and cold in terms of their lineup, but they were able to get just enough to be able to get the job done there. And then On Sunday Night Baseball, the Red Sox give away a 3-run lead, but they find a way to walk it off. 5-4 the final. We'll talk a little bit more about this game and the Red Sox with Tanner Kern on the flip side, but you did see Hayden Wesneski give you a relatively okay start. You weren't expecting a lot of length. 2 runs, one of which was earned, give it up in 4 innings. From there, Richard Lovelady, a scoreless inning. Daniel Palencia gives up nothing in his 2 innings of work, but Yancy Almonte gives up 2 runs in an inning before Mark Leiter Jr. lighters this one up as Tyler O'Neill gets a walk-off single off of him. He gives up that run in the 9th inning as Mike Tauchman, he did get a 3-run homer to make things very interesting. That comes off of Chris Martin, 3rd of the campaign, as for Tanner Houck, he was very good. 9 punch-outs, 1 run allowed in 6 2/3 innings. He has been a revelation this year, but Martin has been so sure-handed for the Red Sox recently. 3 runs surrendered in 1 1/3 innings, giving up that bomb before Kenley Jansen, a scoreless 9th inning for Boston to be able to get to the window. And if you're looking at what we're seeing trend-wise in Major League Baseball, has been very much underwhelming recently, as over the last 7 days, the under is hitting at a 61.8% clip. 55 unders, 34 overs. We have seen, I believe, 5 pushes along the way as well, as it has been favorites who have been able to do a relatively solid job as well. 55 and 39 on the money line, hitting at about 58.5%. Relatively close to what we're seeing this season. 246 out of 175 are favorites on the money line. Meanwhile, if you're looking at totals, very much an underwhelming season thus far. 52.2% to the under, 213 unders, 195 overs, and quite a few pushes along the way. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Sunday. Now let's take a look at Monday's games and the AL East along with the Boston Red Sox with our good friend Tanner Kern of DraftKings. That's up next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it is great to be joined by this man, as Tanner Kern. He does an absolutely tremendous job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, but over at DraftKings, he literally does a little bit of everything. From the NFL draft that just came and went to the NBA, NHL, MLB. Heck, if they put bowling up on the board, I think that he'd be throwing a bunch of strikes on the bowling front as well. Tanner does such a great job looking at so many different markets. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at his first and last name, Tanner Kern. That last name spells Kern, then an underscore after that. And Tanner, always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Anytime I get to talk baseball with you is an absolute pleasure, so I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you joining me. And Tanner, we are doing this just minutes after Sunday Night Baseball, where you were actually in attendance for the Boston Red Sox, being able to get the job done, getting that nice walk-off winner against the Chicago Cubs. And just what is your overall outlook right now on the Boston Red Sox, who they are going to have an off day, so they're going to be able to rest, relax, and recoup a little bit. But what is your outlook on this team and what is one of the most competitive divisions out there in baseball in the AL East?
I think if they can stay healthy, they can make a playoff push. They've proven they can win with a largely minor league lineup at times this season. They're starting to get a little healthier, but they've also lost a lot of big-name guys. This goes back to the beginning of the season with Lucas Giolito, right, who didn't even take the mound for them. Tristan Casas is not playing right now. Trevor Story, obviously, with the injury. So they've dealt with a lot, and they've still found a way to be in the mix. They're only 2.5 games back in the American League East right now, so that's something to note. And then Tyler O'Neill tonight, who had the walk-off, him returning has been huge. Hit a home run in 2 games of this series against the Cubs. I mean, the Red Sox have battled. I got to give them credit. It's amazing when you look up at the standings how well they're playing, considering the roster that has been on the field many times this year.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. And I think that Tyler O'Neill is really the guy that is the straw that's stirring the drink. I don't know how you take a look at it, but he and Rafael Devers, I think, are as meaningful to this lineup as darn near any duo out there in all of baseball. Maybe I'm overstating it a little bit with some of the players that the Atlanta Braves have, but I take a look at their impact on the team, and I think without those two guys, you're really looking at a rudderless ship, and getting them back has been so massive for this team.
Yeah, I think the way this team is constructed, there's a few stars. Those are 2 of them. Tyler O'Neill has really stepped up, and when he is healthy, he is a tremendous hitter. But you also have, in addition to Devers, you have Tristan Casas, you have Jarren Duran, who's been fantastic this season, hitting 252 with a 321 OBP, and really just forcing teams to make plays, right? He really stretches the bases, and that's been huge for them this year. I mean, you also have Masataka Yoshida, so credit to him. He had a pretty good series. Has not been great this season, is known for hitting the ball into the ground, but he's finding a way to get on base and deliver right now, too. So the Red Sox, while they're not going to win a World Series by any means, I think they can make a playoff push if they continue to stay healthy once they get healthy. And there's a long way to go in getting healthy, but they're winning games right now, which is good to see.
Yep, it is very nice to see, and we shall see what they're going to be able to do moving forward in this division because, as we know, the top two teams in the division, the Yankees and the Orioles, are going to be doing battle on Monday. We'll dive into them in a second because I do think that it's really hard to argue with those two teams being at the top, but I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays and the fact that it's looking like they're going to be left in the dust in this division. Even the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been a little bit rough at the plate, they've shown some signs of promise. But where are you at on the Tampa Bay Rays after they get swept by the Chicago White Sox? White Sox team that had won 3 games prior to the series and just collected 3 games within the last 72 hours.
So I'm not necessarily out on the Tampa Bay Rays because they've proven they can win with a smaller payroll and not a lot of talent there, but they still have some guys that can play. They're just not putting it together right now. What they did against the White Sox this weekend was pretty despicable. The first game was a 9-4 loss, then they lost an 8-7 game and a 4-2 game. So you got blown out in one, and then you lost 2 tight games. It really just comes down to not hitting with runners in scoring position, not hitting in high leverage situations. But this has been the theme of the Rays throughout the entire season. They're 5-7 on the road, and they just really haven't found their stride yet. But we've seen it with them over the years that they might start slow and then they pick up late or vice versa. So I wouldn't rule them out yet. They still have guys like Yandy Diaz, Paredes, Siri, Randy Arozarena, obviously, who's not hitting right now. He's hitting 152. Once he finds his rhythm, that's really going to make a difference too. So I'm not out on them, but I'm definitely not in on them the way they're playing.
It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to progress moving forward because this is the opposite of last year where they got off to such a hot start, and well, it's been anything but a hot start thus far this season. As joining me on the show, we've got Tanner Kern, who does tremendous work over at DraftKings, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and also is one half of the Ride the Line podcast as well. And how about if we do dive in on that big AL East game that we've got for Monday? It is the Yankees and the Orioles, with Grayson Rodriguez going for the Orioles, Clark Schmidt on the bump for the Yankees, and Yankees about a plus 120, plus 115 underdog, minus 130 to minus 135 is where we're at on Baltimore with a total of 9. How do you evaluate this game with the Yankees coming in having scored 30, count them 30 runs in their last 2 games, but the Orioles being that top team in the majors in terms of home runs?
Well, the Baltimore Orioles should be angry right now because we're talking about how the Rays played against the White Sox. The Orioles lost the series to the Oakland Athletics, and those are critical games because to win a division like the American League East, you need to win the games you're supposed to win, and Baltimore was unable to do that. However, I would back them in this spot. I think the Yankees are due for some regression facing a guy like Grayson Rodriguez, 3-1 with a 4.45 ERA and a 1.41 WHIP. But the thing about Rodriguez is he might have some walk trouble at times. However, he has elite strikeout ability, 34 Ks in 28 innings. Going against Clark Schmidt, who has been okay, very similar numbers, 2-0 with a 3.55 ERA, 25 innings on the mound, 27 hits allowed, and 29 strikeouts. However, I think the Orioles are going to bounce back and find a way to get on track. We've seen it with them that they tend to rise to the occasion and play up to the teams they're supposed to beat. And the Yankees, they are a fantastic team, but this is a huge series here, and I think we're going to see Baltimore rise to the occasion.
Yep, I think so as well. And Grayson Rodriguez coming off of a rough start against the LA Angels, but past that, he has been quite good ever since the middle of last season as well. So a guy that I'm very high on, and it's going to be interesting because I didn't think I would say this, but how the White Sox handle prosperity as they're on a 3-game win streak. The old line of Major League is that it has happened before in terms of a win streak. They are now playing us the Minnesota Twins with Joe Ryan going for them, Garrett Crochet on the bump for the White Sox. And White Sox, well, still not getting a lot of respect. They're between plus 140 to plus 150 underdogs with a total of between 7 and 7.5. How do you evaluate this sort of series? Because the White Sox, perhaps all they needed was to be able to get a little bit of positivity, a little bit of warmth, but now you've got a White Sox team that they need to try to back it up in this series against a Twins bunch that has been also rough at the plate, but pretty good with their pitching.
There's a few ways I'd look at this game. I would say initially lean under, but also Garrett Crochet is a guy that does give up some home runs, and the Minnesota Twins can hit home runs. That's how they've scored a lot this season. So that's one thing to watch out for. While Minnesota hasn't been great at the plate, as you were saying, they still have the ability to rise to the occasion with these big-time hitters there that can deliver. But I would say the way to go here is leaning under on the White Sox team total in this one. Joe Ryan has been fantastic, 1-1, 3.45 ERA with a WHIP right around 1, and 38 strikeouts in 28 innings. So when he does get into trouble, he's able to work his way out of it. In this White Sox lineup, while they did show up against the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend, they have been just horrendous. They're hitting 201 on the season with a 271 OBP as a team, only 18 homers, 73 runs. there's not a lot to write home about with the Chicago White Sox. They're also just 5-9 in their own ballpark. So I don't really want anything to do with them. And I think a good way to play this game would be leaning under on their team total just because of Joe Ryan, the fact that I don't trust them even after a 3-game winning streak against the Tampa Bay Rays.
Absolutely. And I think that that's important to take a look at the team total aspect as well, because the White Sox have still been brutal with their offense, but this full game can easily go over because the schlubs coming out of the bullpen from the White Sox could very easily light this game on fire as well. And speaking of schlubs that lit a game on fire, the Miami Marlins got up by a count of 7-0 to Patrick Corbin started, somehow still lost by 3 runs on Sunday. Not great to say the least. And now here they are as minus 145 to minus 155 favorites against Washington. Totals 8.5. I'm not sure if you disagree here, but one thing that I'm not looking to do on Monday is lay minus 145 with a Marlins team that gave away a 7-run lead against a team that was starting Patrick Corbin on the flip side.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to everyone who bet against Patrick Corbin, as many people do when Patrick Corbin takes the mound, and still found a way to win when you were expecting to absolutely get crushed.
Didn't even win the first 5.
Oh, I know. It was a wild game. Shout out to everyone who found a way to, think their bet was dead and then found a way to come back. Looking at this game, though, yeah, I will never play minus 150 with the Miami Marlins. They're 6-23. They're 2-14 at home. If you don't like the Nationals, I recommend staying away from this game. But when these teams, like baseball, you got to find those plus money underdogs that have really good spots. Like this is a good spot for the Nationals here. Jake Irvin, 1-2 with a 4.55 ERA, going against Trevor Rogers, who has a 1.52 WHIP. Walks and batters this season, strikeout ability is pretty even, but he gives up a lot of hits, 31 hits allowed in 26 innings. I would take the plus money here every day of the week. Washington is also 9-6 on the road this season. They have a higher average than the Miami Marlins. They have a higher OBP by about 40 points, and they've scored more runs this season. So for plus 130, when I think Jake Irvin's pretty comparable to Trevor Rogers here, I'm taking that all day long.
Yeah, but I'm right there with you, and it's one of those cases as well. If you don't bet the Washington Nationals, I understand, but could the Miami Marlins win this game? Sure, laying minus 150 here, it's gone too far in my opinion for a team that is 6-23 right now in the year. For the Miami Marlins, as Tanner Kern, who does great work over at DraftKings, he's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and Tanner, we do have ourselves a pretty nice Monday. Typically, it's a travel day, so you typically don't get as many games as we do have, as we've got 12 in total. Anything else that you're taking a look at in terms of a game that you're either going to be looking to bet, or maybe it's not even a game that you're looking to bet, but you're just curious on a pitcher or a team?
Yeah, there's a few that I've been looking at. One of my favorite bets on the day is actually the under in the Cubs versus Mets game. I think this one's going to be really fun to watch. Looking at the Cubs, they didn't have the greatest offensive performance at Fenway over the weekend. I know they scored a little bit overall. It just came from a 3-run shot. They were shut out the game before that. They lost 17-0. That wasn't pretty. And they're going to face Luis Severino, who's been good for New York, 2-2 with a 2.67 ERA and a 1.26 WHIP. The Cubs are going to bring Jameson Taillon to the mound. He's 2-0 with a 1.69 ERA. He's only pitched 10 innings this season, but he's been really good, leading to that undefeated record there. So looking at the under of 8 runs. And then another bet that I'm looking at, I do like the Dodgers for a really good price of minus 148 with James Paxton on the mound. Tommy Henry does have some flaws, 5.5 ERA with a 1.6 WHIP. I don't know if you've noticed this, Greg, but it seems like the books are giving really good prices on the Dodgers as of late. I mean, they were minus 130 when they beat the Blue Jays by 10 runs the other night. We're seeing these good prices. Minus 150 for the Dodgers is something I'm willing to play when they do have a pitching matchup. So those will be my 2 favorite bets of the day right now.
Absolutely. And we've got ourselves a really nice card that is going to be coming up for Monday. And we've got ourselves a lot of fun for this baseball season, as I know that you, Tanner, are going to be locked in on it all season long. And you're locked in on a little bit of everything. You're doing a tremendous job on this front. I know you're doing great work when it comes to NBA, NHL playoffs, and so much more, along with being a co-host along with Grant Mitchell, one of our other friends here on the podcast of the Ride the Line podcast. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Definitely, Greg. Yeah, it's a busy time right now. I got to turn the Oilers on to watch that game. So you can find me on TikTok at Tanner Kern and Twitter at Tanner Kern _. Those are the 2 places I post most of my personal content. And then you can find me pretty much every day on the DraftKings Sportsbook social media pages, giving out plays and giving out video content there as well, sports stories, betting content. And then you can find me on Greg's show on Thursday nights. Appreciate you having me on, Greg.
Absolutely. Tanner does such a great job on so many different fronts. If you need a little hockey, if you need a little NBA, MLB, when it's in season football, he's got you covered on every single front. And every single time he joins this show, lends great insight. So big thanks to Tanner for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Tanner Kern, who does tremendous work over at DraftKings, taking a look at this great game of baseball. And he truly is an ace on so many different fronts, whether that be all forms of football, whether that be taking a look at college basketball when that's in season, the NBA, NHL playoffs, list goes on and on. He does it all. So big thanks to Tanner for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @Gina_81, and we're going to be going on the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, then the Interleague games, and we've got quite a few. Those are going to be at the bottom, so that'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. Without further ado, let's dive in on this first game. By the way, before we get started, gripe is that we have no day games today. So if you're listening to this a little bit later, you have not missed out on any bets as long as you're listening before like 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. But that said, let's dive in. 9:01, 9:02 on the betting board. It is the Miami Marlins. They play host to the Washington Nationals. Jake Irvin is on the bump for the Nats, and it is Trevor Rogers on the bump for Miami. Miami opened up a -160 favorite. Now they're anywhere between -145 to -155. Between +124 to a +140 is your number on Washington. 8.5 is the total. Under is -120 and the over is even. And if you want to trust in a team that was up 7-0 in a Patrick Corbin start and loss, you be my guess at a -150 because I'm not going to be willing to do so. I felt like this number should have been more like -107. I mean, the fact that I made the Miami Marlins a favorite I thought was being generous because it is a Marlins team that has been all out of sorts. Trevor Rogers has been solid. 4.10 ERA, fielding independent that is hovering right around about a 285. He's given up just one home run in 26 and a third innings, but go back to his last fully healthy season in 2022. Did post up an ERA more around 5 when he was in Miami. And for Jake Irvin, he's been posting up an ERA right around about a 4.55, but his fielding independent is a full point lower. Got absolutely tattooed in his last start against the LA Dodgers, but prior to that, had held them for 6 scoreless innings. All in all, I like the way that he has been able to fortify himself in terms of giving up fewer walks. Last year, gave up about 4 walks per 9 innings. This year, more like 2.3 walks per 9 innings, and he's only given up 2 home runs in 27 plus innings this season, and he gets to go up against a Miami Marlins bunch that really just has not been able to put bat to ball in terms of a whole bunch of contact. We got Jazz Chisholm, who's been able to move the line a little bit, and then it's been Brian De La Cruz who's been the main power source for the team. He's been able to supply 5 home runs with Jake Berger out of the fold. It's been very rough for this team to say the least, and got a lot of guys are hitting in that neighborhood of like 225 to a 240, including Tim Anderson, which you just need him to hit better because he just doesn't supply any sort of power whatsoever. And Luis Arias, while he's hitting for a 300, these guys just aren't able to get extra base hits. You're relying upon Josh Bell to be able to give you a little bit of that pop. He hasn't been able to do so. .76 batting average, and for the Washington Nationals, CJ Abrams just continues to be tremendous for the team. He has supplied 5+ home runs, giving you about a 365 on base. This Nationals team is one that is not going to strike out very much. They're going to put the ball in play. Now, they don't necessarily generate the world's most contact, and got Joey Gallo with 1 single with like 43 strikeouts this far this season. He and Eddie Rosario have been brutal, but now you've got Jesse Winker giving you a 400 on base. Guillermo Vargas has been able to move the line, hitting a 300. Trey Lipscomb, after a rough start to the season, has found a way to be able to get on base, and the Washington Nationals have by far the better bullpen in this ordeal as well. For the Miami Marlins, you had guys like George Soriano, Andrew Nardi, Taylor Scott. They were all relatively solid last year, and this year they've all went straight down the toilet bowl. All these guys have like north of 5 ERA. For the Miami Marlins, they're currently clocking in with a 5.10 overall ERA. That is 25th in the league, and it's not to say that on the flip side, the Washington Nationals are amazing, but they're 14th in the league in terms of ERA. I like what you're able to get out of Jordan Williams, along with someone like a Hunter Harvey. Kyle Finnegan does give me a little bit of pause, but all in all, bullpen has been able to do their part, and for the Miami Marlins to be -150 here is just just way too far in my opinion. I'm going to take the plus price on the Nationals set on my handle plus 107 and did make my total an 8.2. I do think that both of these starters lend a relatively solid start, so here at the 8.5, I like the under, and I like the Nationals on the money line. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Chicago Cubs hit the road, facing off against the New York Mets, as Luis Severino is on the bump for the Mets, and Jameson Taillon goes for the Cubs. Cubs are between a plus 112 to a plus 117 underdog, minus 122 to minus 127. That number on the Metropolitan State is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105, and noticing a lot of books do not have this game up on the board. I'm not seeing anything in terms of like a pitching switch or anything like that, so this is subject to a little bit of change if there is, but assuming this is what we get, I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Mets. I did set the Mets at a minus 138. Luis Severino is starting to look like the Luis Severino of old. He's given up just 2 home runs in 27 innings. Not amazing swing miss stuff, but you know what? 26 strikeouts in 27 innings. That's certainly passable, and he's just been able to get the job done time and time again. He had that one bad start against the Milwaukee Brewers where he gave up 6 runs, but only 3 of them were earned, and if you're looking at earned runs, 3 or fewer are given up in every start as far as the season. Jameson Taillon, meanwhile, he's come off the injured list, and he's looked relatively solid. He's given up a combined 2 runs over the course of 10 and 2/3 innings, but still pitches quite a bit of contact. 8 punch-outs in 10 and 2/3 innings thus far this season. You know the command is going to be relatively solid, has given up just 1 walk in each of his first 2 starts thus far this season, and he's backed up by a Cubs lineup that is in the top 10 in the big leagues with regards to run creation, but now they're dealing with an injury to Cody Bellinger. He's on the injured list. You got Michael Busch, who's been incredible, 340 on base. He's been able to supply 6 home runs, but need a little bit more out of some of these guys like a Christopher Morel, who's only giving you about a 286 on base. Nico Horner has been able to do a solid job moving the line. He's hitting about a 285, not necessarily a lot of pop, but he's been able to do a solid job there. But they DFA'd Garrett Cooper, which I felt like he was doing an okay job. I'm not sure what was going on there, but that said, they've been dealing with a few injuries. CA Suzuki, I know, has been dealing with an injury, so that does negatively affect this Cubs lineup. And for the New York Mets, they couldn't hit with Bennett scoring position all day yesterday, but found a way to be able to get it done. And it's a hot and cold lineup to say the least, but they've honestly been one of your better home run teams in all baseball this far this season, and a lot of it is thanks to Pete Alonso. 8 home runs this far this season, supplying about a 340 on base, and then you've had Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor have rough seasons, but Lindor especially is starting to pick it up. Had a nice home run yesterday as well. You've been able to have Tyrone Taylor be able to move the line, hitting about a 295, and for the Mets, this has been one of the better bullpens in the big leagues. Now, granted, they've had to use up quite a few arms yesterday, but the fact that Jose Quintana was able to fill 8 innings made the void of having to go into extras a little bit more manageable. They did have to use up Reed Garrett along with Edwin Diaz, but you still have Adam Ottavino in the bullpen who's been able to do a relatively solid job. They've got Jake Diekman who's going to be able to give you some good innings as well, and this Mets team is a top 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Cubs, more of a pedestrian league average bullpen to slightly below average. Now they're picking up Richard Lovelady. That's not necessarily a place where you want to be, and then you've got on top of that Colton Brewer who's been able to do a relatively okay job. Aber Elsley has been a nice closer. Keegan Thompson is able to give you a little bit of length, but that said, I do think that the Mets should be able to go out there, get the job done. What I think is going to be a higher scoring game. See a little bit of regression for Luis Severino, and I do think that Jameson Taillon going to get barreled up a little bit as well. Some I told it at 8.7. I like the over, and with the Mets going to be willing to lay up to a minus 137 on this money line. 905, 906 on the betting board. The LA Dodgers, they're facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Tommy Henry is on the bump for Arizona. James Paxton is on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are between minus 140 to minus 145 favorites. They're between plus 120 to plus 132. That is your number on Arizona. 10 is the total. The over and the under are both anywhere between minus 120 and even money, so shop around accordingly there. And with this one, I'm going to be taking a look at that total under. Semi-total at 9.7. Tommy Henry has been able to increase his swings and misses this year. He's got a 5.55 ERA. That said, he's got a fielding independent more around about a 4.25, so he's been able to do a little bit of a better job on that front. He's been able to give you about 9 punch-outs per 9 innings, and when it comes to Tommy Henry, biggest thing is he needs to avoid getting barreled up, which that's easier said than done going up against an LA Dodgers team as still one of the top offenses in all the big leagues. Now, I will say this for the LA Dodgers. They've got a few guys that have not been doing a great job for them thus far this season. Gavin Lux, James Outman, Chris Taylor, looking at you, all these guys hitting below a 200, but I mean, their top 4 hitters typically on any given night are all giving you at least a 398 on base and at least a 300 batting average. Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts on that fold. Freeman hasn't necessarily given you a lot lot of power thus far, but Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, a combined 13 home runs between the two of them, and for Betts, a .482 on base with Teoscar Hernandez throwing in their 6 bombs as well for the LA Dodgers. So what has been getting bombed for them has been the bullpen. It's a bullpen that is below average with regards to their ERA, so it's been a little bit rough. They get rid of Caleb Ferguson, Victor Gonzalez in the offseason, Brusardo Gratterall still dealing with an injury, but now they're ascending. They're up to about 13th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Thanks to what we saw yesterday, they did have to use up quite a few guys because Michael Grove did not necessarily give them the world's greatest amount of length, and Ryan Brazier has been a little bit up and down this season, but I do think that James Paxton is going to be able to lock in this one for Paxton. The biggest thing for him is that he's just given out too many walks. He's still doing a solid job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. He's given up just 2 home runs in 20 2/3 innings, but they wanted to try to give him a little bit of extra rest after he had given up 3+ walks in 3 out of his first 4 starts thus far this season, and hasn't really been getting a lot of punch-outs. Throughout his career, he's always been a very good strikeout pitcher, just 11 strikeouts in 20 2/3 innings, but I do sense that we're starting to see a little bit of regression when it comes to this Arizona Diamondbacks lineup in general, as this is a bunch that's now scored 3 runs or fewer in each out of their last 4 games and in 5 out of their last 6 games. For Arizona, you've got a pair of guys in Lourdes Gurriel, Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte that have both been able to supply 5 home runs, and you've also got Christian Walker, who's giving you a .383 on base. He's up to 5 bombs as well, but Corbin Carroll has been terrible this year. He's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 with just 1 home run. You've had a lot of guys that have come out of nowhere like Jake McCarthy, Blaze Alexander, Jock Peterson, allowing at least a .295 for this unit, though the catcher spot has been a little bit rough, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, bullpen is slightly below average as well. You're dealing with some injuries to the likes of Luis Frias, Miguel Castro. That said, we've been able to get some good innings over the last few seasons out of Kevin Ginkel. I like what I'm seeing out of Ryan Thompson as well, so it does put you in a relatively interesting spot. I do think that James Paxton is going to benefit quite a bit from that extra rest, and Arizona's been playing a little bit more to hitters thus far this season, but I do think that we've gone a tad bit too far, and I do think that the Dodgers, after coming back from the country of Canada, they're going to be a little bit exhausted as well, but I do think that Paxton finds a way to be able to give this team just enough to be able to get it done, and for the LA Dodgers, this team has won all but 36 of their regular season games that they have been able to get the job done in, 229 in total since the beginning of the 2022 season by multiple runs. So I'm going to be looking to lay that run line with the LA Dodgers. I set them at a -105. You're right now getting a +105 to a +110, so looking at that plus price on the Dodgers run line and the 10 under 907, 908 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're on the road. They're facing off against the Slam Diego Padres. Matt Waldron goes for the Pods, and Nick Lodolo is on the bump for Cincinnati. This is pretty much a pick'em game. With Cincinnati, you're going to be finding them anywhere between -105 to -110. Even money to -110 is the number on the Padres. 8 is the total. The over and the under are anywhere between -105 to a -115. And with Mr. Waldron, I set him as a -113 favorite. I'm going to be willing to back the Padres for Cincinnati Reds. This team has been very good at being able to generate runs on the road. A little bit north of 5 per contest. That's a top 8 mark in all of the big leagues, but now they have to go to Petco Park, where it's very, very pitcher friendly. And for the Reds, it's been a top heavy lineup there as far as Spencer Steer, Ellie De La Cruz have both been able to supply north of 375 on base, and De La Cruz 7 home runs as far this season. He has been incredible, but that said, you've got so many guys like Will Benson, Javier Candelario, Nick Martini, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Santiago Espinal, only at 200 or lower. Been able to get quite a bit of production recently out of Jonathan India. That series against the Texas Rangers was very kind to him. He had that 4-hit game with a bomb on Saturday, so perhaps that's going to be able to get him going. Meanwhile, you've got a San Diego Padres team that they don't have as much star power as they did a season ago. You lose Josh Hader, you lose, along with that, Juan Soto, but that said, it feels like there's a nice disbursement of talent along this roster. Ah-Sung Kim, Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth have all been able to supply 4 home runs as far this season. Cronenworth and Ah-Sung Kim both between about a 325 to a 345 on base. Xander Bogaerts needs to pick it up. He's been a waste of money. 280 on base, 2 home runs as far this season. But that said, Luis Campusano, after the catcher spot, was pretty much an automatic help for this team a season ago. He and Jackson Merrill both hitting above a 290. And for the Padres, this has been a relatively league average bullpen. Other than that one uptucking that they had in Colorado about a week ago, they've been relatively solid. You pick up Yuki Matsui, you pick up Wandy Peralta along with Daniel De Los Santos, and that really fortifies this bullpen, though. Tom Cosgrove last year had a sub-2 ERA. He has been all over the place this season, to say the least, but we've been able to have Robert Suarez do a nice job closing things down, and I do like Alexis Diaz in the closer spot for the Cincinnati Reds as well. They did have Brent Suter have a little bit of rough COVID on Saturday, but all in all, this is a Reds bullpen that is in the top half of the big leagues with regards to ERA. We had Fernando Cruz be able to supply a sub-2 ERA this far this season. Justin Wilson has been able to give you some good innings as well, so it is an interesting spot to be in for Nick Lodolo. He has come back off of injury, and he has been tremendous in his 3 starts. 17 innings, 20 strikeouts, giving up just 4 runs now. Granted, 2 of those starts were against the Angels and the White Sox, and when the competition got a little bit tougher against the Philadelphia Phillies, he gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. So, still do have a few question marks with Lodolo coming off that injury. Did semi-total at 8.2 as a result. 2 young guys that have some upside, but I do think that they're both going to give up a few runs here, so I do like the over. And with the Padres willing to lay up to a -112 with that money line, 909, 910 on the betting board. The New York Yankees, they're on the road. They're facing off against the Baltimore Orioles as Grayson Rodriguez is on the bump for the Orioles and Clark Schmidt is on the bump for the Yankees. Yankees are an underdog of anywhere between +114 to +122. Meanwhile, between -130 to -135 is your number on Baltimore. 9 is the total. Overs between -115 to a -120. Unders between even and -105. And semi-total in an 8.4. I like the under. Grayson Rodriguez did get tattooed in his last start against the LA Angels, but that was what snapped a 17-start streak of him having given up 3 earned runs or fewer after he had a rough go of it in 2023. He got sent back down to the minors, resurfaced, and ever since then has been relatively solid. You take a look at his ERA right now of a 4.45, not representative of how he's truly pitched. He had that one bad outing, 355 fielding independent. He's getting about 11 strikeouts to less than 3 walks per 9 innings. And for Clark Schmidt, he's just been a very steady Eddie pitcher for the Yankees. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and dominate by any stretch of the imagination, but he just gives you like 6 innings, gives up 2 to 3 runs. As a matter of fact, in his last 32 pitching appearances, he has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in all but 3 of them. So he does a nice job being able to hold down the fort. His strikeout numbers are a little bit up this year as well. He's been able to get about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, granted, it has come with about 3.6 walks per 9 innings as well, but now he has to go up against the Baltimore Orioles team that they have been the Death Star in the American League with regards to their lineup. As you've got Gunnar Henderson, who's been gunning it out of the park. 9 home runs thus far this season, and you just take a look at these top guys. Henderson, along with Jordan Westberg, Ryan Mountcastle, Adley Rutschman, Colton Cowser, Ryan O'Hearn, all at least a 350 on base, and pretty much every one of these guys has at least 4 home runs as well. As a matter of fact, for the Orioles, 44 home runs in 27 games as far this season. That leads the major leagues, and for the New York Yankees, they're coming off of a vulgar display of power, to quote the great Van Terra from what we saw over the weekend. 30 runs in their last 2 games against the Brewers. How granted, probably a little bit of interference on Sunday, but that said, this team has already been able to get online with Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, up to a combined 13 home runs apiece. And Aaron Judge, we saw him really struggle in 2022 to begin the season as well. Perhaps this is exactly what's going to get him going. And even with his struggles, still give you about a 350 on base. Soto's been able to give you about a 434 on base. Still need a little bit of help from someone like a Gleyber Torres. Giancarlo Stanton has become a little bit of an all-or-nothing guy, but he's now been able to supply 6 home runs this far this season. And Anthony Rizzo has been able to get online as well. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Orioles, it's a bullpen that it's a little bit touch and go. Craig Kimbrell thus far this season has been solid, but you never know when the bottom is going to fall out on Craig Kimbrell. But you've got guys like Danny Kaloum, Jacob Webb, Dylan Tate that have all been able to come in and have been able to hold down the fort for a Baltimore Orioles team that, in terms of their bullpen ERA, they're about 18th. I think that they're a little bit better than that. Meanwhile, for the New York Yankees, they have been number 4 in terms of bullpen ERA. Victor Gonzalez has been relatively solid for the team. You get back Ron Marinaccio after he was out to begin the season. Ian Hamilton has been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA, so it is a circumstance where I do think that the Yankees going to be able to get a little bit more back-end support, but I do think that for Clark Schmidt, he goes out there, probably goes 6 innings, gives up 3 runs. I think that that's enough for the Orioles to get the job done. Set the Orioles at a -146. I'd like them on the money line. Semi-total at an 8.4, so you're at the 9. Also like the under. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. It is the Kansas City Royals. Hit the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. Yadiel Rodriguez is on the bump for the Blue Jays. Jonathan Bolin is going to be getting his first start of the year for the Kansas City Royals. And for the Royals, you are going to be finding them as underdogs in this ordeal. You're going to be getting them anywhere in the neighborhood of about +120 and +132. Meanwhile, on the Jays, they're anywhere between -140 to -145. 8.5 to 9 is the total. On the 8.5, over is -120. The under is even. On the 9, under is -125, and the over is +105. And did semi-total at 8.9. Pretty much seeing mostly 9s out there. And personally, I'd rather have a 9 under in this ordeal because the Blue Jays, they have been pretty strong with their pitching recently. If you look at their bullpen ERA, they are in the bottom half of the big leagues, but much of that came without having Jordan Romano along with Eric Swanson in the fold. So they've been able to do a much better job of being able to hold down the fort recently. As a matter of fact, for the Toronto Blue Jays team, they have now given up 3 runs or fewer in all but 1 out of their last 7 games. Actually, 4 runs or fewer, but still, I mean, when you play 3 of those games against the LA Dodgers, you're doing something right there. But instead, the offense just has not been able to get online. And for Mr. Bolin, he got 1 taste of the big leagues last season. He threw 3 innings. He gave up 1 run. So it's a very small sample size as to what we do have for him in the minor leagues 8 seasons ago. He did post up an ERA a little bit north of 5. So I've got my trepidations there. Didn't look great in spring training. Didn't look terrible in spring training. So I do think that there might be something to be had here for the Royals. And for the Royals, they're probably going to back him up with a lot of bullpen pitching. I don't think that Bolin is going to be giving you really anything north of like 4, maybe 5 innings, but the bullpen thus far for the Royals, I think that's going to be falling off a little bit moving forward. But that said, they've been 11th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Matt Sauer is someone that's able to give you multiple innings. John Schreiber was able to pitch multiple innings a season ago for the Boston Red Sox. They call up Will Klein to be able to help out and hold down the fort a little bit as well. Young 24-year-old that has a bit of promise for the team as well. So you've got a lot of bullpen pieces that are on tap for the Royals. And he gets to face off against a Blue Jays unit that they're in the bottom half of the big leagues right now, and so many offensive categories. They have been quite powerless with regards to the home run ball. You've got Dalton Varsho as the only guy in the roster that's given you north of 3 home runs thus far this season. 6 bombs. He's been able to hit for about a 320 on base. But here's the issue that you've got with the Blue Jays. Bobashev, Vlager Jr., George Springer, Oleander Kirk, all in between at 200 and at 220. And Kevin Kiermaier sitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Just haven't been able to get a lot of consistency out of Justin Turner, who's been able to give you 390 on base. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa isn't necessarily giving you a lot either. It's against lefties, it's against righties, it's against starters, it's against relievers. It's been all sorts of rough. And for the Kansas City Royals, this has been an offense that has been quite different when they have been away from home rather than when they have been at home. At home, this Kansas City Royals team is just absolutely crushing, as for them, they've been able to supply about 5.2 runs per contest, more like 4 runs per game when they've been away from home, though. You do have each of your top 5 players with regards to total at-bats have been able to supply at least 4 home runs. Miguel Garcia, Vinny Pasquantino, MJ Melendez, Salvador Perez, along with Bobby Witt Jr. And for Witt Jr. and Perez, both of these guys hitting north of a 300, so they've been able to do a very formidable job there. Now, the bottom of the fold needs to pick it up. The likes of Adam Frazier, Hunter Renfroe, Freddie Fermin, along with Kyle Isabel. They're hitting at 215 or lower, not giving you a lot in terms of power or on-base percentage, but I do think that for the Royals, they're going to be able to generate a little bit of something out of Uriel Rodriguez. They just saw him last week out there in Kansas City, got 3 runs off of him. As for Rodriguez, he's probably only going to give you about 4 or so innings as well. He was expected to be a long relief man who came over from the Nippon Baseball League. He's literally pitching like every single league on the face of planet Earth. But as I was alluding to, this Blue Jays bullpen is out fortified a little bit more. Trevor Richards has been relatively okay in a little bit more of a long relief role thus far this season, but I do think that the Blue Jays, they're going to be able to pick it up a little bit with their bats. I don't believe that they're as bad as they've hit thus far this season. I think that we've maybe overrated them last few seasons, but I do think that things go a little bit northward. But here at a 9, I'm going to be willing to go in on the under. It's been a very pitcher-friendly ballpark ever since the new dimensions came into play, so do like the under. And with the Blue Jays, did set them at a minus 144, as I do think that Rodriguez going to be able to give a better start than Bolin. So want to lay up to a minus 143 on this Blue Jays money line, and looking at the 9 under, 913, 914 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins hit the road the phrase off against the Chicago White Sox, as Garrett Crochet goes for the Sox and Joe Ryan is on the bump for the Twins. The Twins are minus 160 to minus 165 favorites, anywhere between plus 140 to plus 150. That number on the Southsiders, 7 to 7.5 is the total. On the 7.5, unders minus 115, the overs minus 105 on the 7. Overs minus 120 to minus 130. The unders between plus 110 and even money. And I did set my total at 7.7. I'm going to be taking a look at this total over with the Chicago White Sox. There's just such a fear that they give up 7 runs all by themselves, and I mean, yippee skippy for them being able to get that series sweep against the Tampa Bay Rays. I think that says much more about the stink of the Tampa Bay Rays rather than the Chicago White Sox picking anything up. And for Garrett Crochet, he had 2 really good starts to begin the season against the Royals and the Atlanta Braves, and ever since then he's just been banged around like a piñata. He has went a combined 11 2/3 innings in his last 3 starts, and he has surrendered 17 runs. The command has been going a little bit off kilter. Overall, 8 walks and 29 2/3 innings. The swing and miss stuff is there. 40 punch-outs in 29 and 2/3 innings. He's got a fielding independent far less than his 6.37 ERA, but man, I do think that he's got some growing to do as a starting pitcher, as he's been just in the bullpen throughout his entire career. Meanwhile, for Joe Ryan, the biggest thing for him is just being able to reduce on the deep ball. Throughout his career, he's given up north of 1.6 home runs per 9 innings when he's been away from home, and against this very Chicago White Sox team, allowed 2 home runs in his last start over the course of 6 innings, and this White Sox team is dead last in the big leagues in terms of home runs. You've had Eloy Jimenez be able to supply 3 home runs, along with being able to get a little bit of power out of Paul DeJong, Gavin Sheets, both of these guys 3 bombs apiece, but for Eloy Jimenez, along with Gavin Sheets, these are really the lone 2 guys that are active that are supplying for this team, as both of these guys have hit above a 255. Corey Lee and Daniel Mendick are both hitting in that fold as well, but other than Tommy Pham, who's got a combined 14 plate appearances / at-bats, nobody else on the roster is hitting above a 215. Andrew Benintendi has been able to pick it up a little bit more, but these are also guys that are not drawing walks. The White Sox last year were a bottom 3 team in the big leagues with regards to walks drawn on a per-at-bat basis, and now they have to go up against a Twins bullpen that ranks in the top 4 in the big leagues with regards to bullpen ERA. They now get Caleb Theobar back in this fold. He and Brock Stewart have been very good throughout the last few seasons. Theobar off to a little bit of a rough start, but you know that he's going to be able to pick it up. You've seen Jay Jackson be able to lend this team some nice relief after he was having a little bit of a shaky go of it to begin the season, but the likes of Cody Funderburk, Griffin Jacks, they've been very consistent all season long, and for the Chicago White Sox, they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Jordan Leisure has been really good for the team, along with John Brebbia, both of these guys supplying a sub-3.5 ERA. You still have Michael Kopech giving up bombs, though. Dominic Leone has not been able to give you really anything whatsoever, and for the Minnesota Twins, the power and the overall lineup starting to really come into form. A combined 27 runs in their last 2 games of their series against the LA Angels, and for this Twins bunch, all of a sudden they have been able to get to at least 6 runs in now each of their last 7 games. Granted, that came against the Angels and the White Sox, so we'll take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but the Twins are a top 10 team in the big leagues with regards to home runs, with Edouard Julien being the straw that stirs the drink, 7 home runs, hitting just a 236, but it's going northward for the team. Ryan Jeffers is hitting above 300. Willie Castro and Alex Kurloff are now hitting at 250 or greater as well, so things are starting to pick up a little bit for this team. They could really use Royce Lewis being back in the fold. That has been the missing piece, and Byron Buxton, 1 home run right now in 86 at-bats. You expect a little bit more there, but the Twins clearly have a much better bullpen in this ordeal. I think that Joe Ryan is going to be able to give a good start, even though he's had a little bit of a checkered pass on the road, and I wouldn't doubt it if he gives up a deep ball or 2, but Garrett Crochet, after a few good night starts, looks like he just has some growing to do. It looks like he should be able to do a solid job for like a few innings, but it does feel like the deeper he goes into games, the less and less effective he becomes. I think that the Twins take advantage. So I did set my total at 7.7. I'm looking at the over. If you're looking to lay a run and a half with the Minnesota Twins, you're able to get them at right around about a plus 105 to a plus 110. I was willing to lay a number on this one. I was willing to lay up to about a minus 112. So going to be taking that plus number to lay a run and a half with the Twins and looking at this total over 915, 916 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers playing us to the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Matz goes for the Cards, and Kenta Maeda is on the bump for Detroit. And Detroit does find themselves as very slight underdogs, anywhere between minus 108 to a minus 115. Anywhere between minus 105 to even money is your number on the Tigers. And total on this game, it is between 8 and 8.5. On the 8.5, under is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The over is anywhere between even and minus 110. On the 8, over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And I did set the Cardinals at a minus 102. Now that you're getting a little bit of a plus price out there at some books on the Detroit Tigers, that's my buy point. Pretty much anything of plus money, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on Detroit. Now, with Kenta Maeda, you've got to have your trepidations with him. He has made 5 starts this far this season, and essentially 3 of them have been big giant turds. So that's not tremendous to say the least, but for Maeda, it does feel like he's able to get things just ironed out a little bit. He had those 3 home run performances against the Chicago White Sox of all teams and the Texas Rangers, but Bassett has been able to do a nice job reducing on the deep ball. He hasn't given out a lot of walks either. His 7 walks in 22 and 2/3 innings relatively passable, just has not been able to get that swing and miss stuff back after he was relatively okay at being able to get swings and misses back prior to the injuries that he suffered a season ago. Meanwhile, for Steven Matz, he had a really nice end to the 2023 season, a sub-3.5 ERA in the second half of the campaign, and first few starts of the season was looking like he was building off of that. Last 2 starts has given up a combined 12 runs in 9 1/3 innings against the Oakland A's and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that's far from tremendous, but he's backed up by a St. Louis Cardinals bullpen that has been in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Been able to get some good innings out of the likes of Matthew Liberatore, along with Ryan Elsley, Andrew Kittredge. These guys are doing a nice job. Problem is for the Cardinals is that they had to go to extra innings yesterday. They didn't necessarily get the world's greatest start out of Lance Lynn, so that's going to be negatively affecting them, but not as much as the fact that this St. Louis Cardinals team now has 18 home runs in 28 games thus far this season. That is a bottom 5 mark in the big leagues, and you just don't have a lot of guys move the line. Paul Goldschmidt, along with Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, Nolan Gorman, all these guys hitting at 215 or lower. It's just not great to say the least. Mason Wynn has actually been one of your better hitters. He, along with Wilson Contreras, both supplying north of a 380 on base, and Contreras has been able to supply 4 home runs. He's been very good for this unit. You've got Nolan Arenado, who's hitting for about a 270, but he's got one more home run than myself and over 100 at-bats this far this season. That's a bit of an issue, and now they have to go up against the Detroit Tigers team that ranks in the top 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They had that big giant collapse against the Kansas City Royals towards the back half of last week, but all in all, these guys have been very good, as you've got the likes of Shelby Miller, Tyler Holton, Alex Lang, Andrew Chafin, all being able to supply sub 3.5 ERA. Alex Faedo has been able to give you some good innings as well, so I do think that for Detroit, they're going to be able to do a nice job holding down a St. Louis Cardinals team that, quite frankly, just has not done a great job of being able to put back the ball thus far this season. And for the Tigers, even though the offense has been quite consistent, they've been able to put up at least 4 runs in 9 out of their last 12 games. This is still a team that, if you look at them overall, they are relatively powerless. They're in the bottom 10 in the big leagues with regards to home runs, even though you've got Riley Green, Mark Canha, who both have been able to supply 5 home runs. As a collective, they're hitting less than a 225, though Canha and Green both, once again, give you north of a 380 on base. But with having Javi Baez, Colt Keith, Parker Meadows, lying below the Mendoza line of 200, and Spencer Torkelson, 0 home runs with a 215 average. That's just not great, to say the least, in terms of the overall firepower. So it is a circumstance where I do think that this is going to be a lower scoring affair. So I told it 8.3, looking at the under, but I think that the Tigers pitching does enough to be able to get it done. Any sort of plus number, looking at the Tigers on the money line, and looking at this total under 917, 918 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers are going to be playing us to the Tampa Bay Rays. Ryan Pepio goes for the Rays, and Bryce Wilson is on the bump for Milwaukee. And for Milwaukee, going to be getting them anywhere between minus 109 to minus 118. Meanwhile, anywhere between plus 101 to minus 105. Your number on the Tampa Bay Rays, 8.5 is the total. Over is between minus 110 to a minus 115. The under is between minus 105 to a minus 110. And with the Rays, I set them at a plus 123. I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Brewers are coming off of giving up 30 runs in their last 2 games against the New York Yankees. Some of those were due to the interference of Aaron Judge, but regardless, not great to say the least. I still am a believer in this bullpen, though. It's a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA towards back half of the season last year, and you still have a lot of guys who have just flat out shoved for this team. You've got Trevor McGill, Jared Koenig, Bryant Hudson, who have all been able to supply a sub-2 ERA, and then Joe Pyam, Toby Milner, Elvis Piero. These are all guys that were very rock solid a season ago. Abner Uribe is good stuff. Just needs to find a way to put it all together. And the Brewers are one of the top over teams in all baseball. They're a top 5 team in the big leagues with regards to being able to supply the deep ball. Rhys Hoskins has come off of injury from his season ago and has been great. 6 home runs with about a 315 on base thus far this season, and William Contreras is doing it all. 432 on base with his 5 home runs. You've had Willie Adames. After last year, he couldn't get on base to save his life, be able to supply north of a 370 on base. And then the young guys, Bryce Terang, Blake Perkins, are both hitting above a 295. Sal Frelick is giving you about a 345 on base. This Brewers team, they don't necessarily handle lefties well, but fortunately, Ryan Pepiot is a righty. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, you've been able to get 7 home runs out of Isaac Paredes, who's hitting a 275 with that regard. And have to figure that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be a little bit ticked off after, I don't know, they got swept by the terrible Chicago White Sox. That said, I just don't think that this team is very good. Yandy Diaz has been dealing with a little bit of an injury, it appears. Randy Arozarena is hitting a $150 with 3 home runs thus far this season. Jose Siri hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200. So you got a lot of guys that they really do need to pick it up. Though Ahmed Rosario is maybe about a 320. But for the Tampa Bay Rays, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this has been one of the most atrocious bullpens in the big leagues overall this season. For the Tampa Bay Rays, they are 27th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Colin Pouchet is out of the fold for the team, so Manuel Rodriguez is going to need to hold down the fort. You've gotten some good innings out of the likes of Sean Armstrong, Jason Adam, even Garrett Clevenger, but his bullpen with Phil Mayton and company just has not been too amazing. And I do think that for the Brewers, Bryce Wilson is going to be able to present a relatively okay performance. For Wilson, he's given up 5 walks in 18 innings. Does need to cut down on the deep ball. Has given up 4 home runs as far this season, and he's been a starter throughout his career, but he was pushed into a little bit more of a long relief role to begin the season for the Brewers, so can't expect him to go much more than 5 innings, but he's gotten north of 3 innings in 3 out of his last 4 outings, so they're getting him stretched out a little bit. And for Ryan Pepio, he's been able to do a nice job since coming over to Tampa Bay. He's got about 9.5 to 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's given up a little bit over a home run per 9 innings, which is a little bit of a concern, and about 3 walks per 9, but oh no, you take a look at his last 4 starts, he's given up 1 run or fewer in 3 of them, so he has not been the problem with the Rays, but the schlubs out of the bullpen I don't think are going to be able to help him out very much, and I do think that the Brewers are going to be able to get some runs in this ordeal, so I did set my total at an 8.7. I like the over, and I do like the Brewers on the money line as well, up to a minus 122, 919, 920 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies hit the road to face off against the LA Angels, as you've got Griffin Canning on the bump for the Angels and Christopher Sanchez on the bump for the Phillies. The Phillies do find themselves anywhere between minus 133 to minus 145 favorites, and between plus 120 to plus 130 is your number on the Halos. 8.5 to 9 is the total on the 9. Under is minus 120, the over is even on the 8.5. Over is between minus 120 to a minus 125. The under is between even and plus 105. Semi-total at 8.6. We're mostly seeing 8.5s, and in this ordeal, I would rather have the 9 under personally, but we're just not seeing that out here in lovely Las Vegas. I've got all 8.5s available to me, so I'm going to be taking a look at the 8.5 over with Christopher Sanchez. He has been giving up far less hard contact this year than he did a season ago. Last year, he was giving up 1.4 walks and 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Thus far this season, has yet to give up a home run in 24 1/3 innings, but the walks are way up to north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but he's been able to get a lot of strikeouts. He's been able to give you north of 10 punch-outs per 9 innings, and for Griffin Canning, fielding independent is better than his 7.50 ERA, but not by a ton, as he has been not great, to say the least. He's only given out about 3 walks per 9 innings, but he's given up 5 home runs in 24 innings. It's just the relentless contact that he's given up. 5+ hits surrendered in all but one of his starts thus far this season. Granted, he has been the deficiary, because you've got beneficiaries. He's the deficiary of having to go up against the Red Sox twice and the Orioles twice, so that's been a rough state of affairs there, but it's not as if he's backed up by a great bullpen either. Take a look at this Angels bullpen, and they are currently in the bottom 5 of the big leagues with regards to ERA. Just a lot of old guys that they're trying to kick the tires on. Hunter Strickland, Adam Simber, guys like this, Luis Garcia, that they just don't have a lot left in the tank, have been trying to come out in the bullpen. Carson Fulmer has actually been relatively solid as a long guy, and if you could get to Matt Moore and Carlos Estevez, it's just fine. Problem is, you can never get to those guys, and for the Philadelphia Phillies, bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA as well, they seem to always struggle in this month of the year. You've had Jose Alvarado, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, all have their issues. It's really been Jeff Hoffman who's been able to do a nice job holding things down, but somehow, someway, the Philadelphia Phillies still well above 500 thus far, and it's because the lineup has really been able to come to the forefront. Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, both hitting above a 335, with Boehm 441 on base with now 4 home runs thus far this season. Then JT Realmuto, Brandon Marsh, Bryce Harper, all between 5 and 6 home runs apiece, all have been able to do a solid job of being able to move the line. Realmuto hitting at 245, Harper along with Brandon Marsh, both north of a 330 on base, so Phillies will be able to find that power. Meanwhile, for the LA Angels, it's just such a top-heavy team. Mike Trout has been able to supply 10 home runs to just 14 RBI, hitting just a 225 though, so he needs to pick it up. Logan Oppie, though, he's been able to give you a 350 on base, and Taylor Ward, 7 home runs, hitting about a 265. That's been rock solid, but we got many guys that need to pick it up. Brandon Drury, along with Aaron Hicks, Mickey Moniak, these are all guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Zach Neto is hitting about a 215. Just need a little bit more there, and I do think that Christopher Sanchez is going to be able to do a nice job stymieing this Angels lineup here at the 8.5 that I'm seeing. I'm going to be willing to take a look at the over, and for the Phillies, I did set them at a minus 136, so seeing minus 133 out there, I'm going to be willing to lay that money line and looking at the over. Now we have my DK Network right, a pick of 921, 922 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners plus the Atlanta Braves. Max Fried goes for the Bravos, and Bryce Miller is on the bump for Seattle, and Seattle is a underdog of anywhere between plus 130 to plus 137, anywhere between minus 145 to minus 155. That number on Atlanta. 7.5 is the total. Unders between minus 110 to a minus 120. The overs anywhere between even and minus 110. Going to be willing to take the Atlanta Braves on the money line. That is not the write-up, though, as I set this line at a minus 147, so right around about minus 145, minus 146, mostly seeing that out here in lovely Las Vegas. I'm going to be willing to lay the number, but that said, write-up is going to be on the over. I set my total at more around an 8.4, as Max Fried has just not had a good run of things thus far this season. He's got an ERA north of a 4.9, and Though the fielding independent indicates that there should be a little bit of improvement here. His fielding independent about a point lower than his ERA. Just hasn't been able to look like himself thus far this season. He's given out about 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He's only getting about 6.2 to 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. And not the absolute opposite with Bryce Miller. 2.22 ERA thus far this season, so he's actually been relatively solid in his 5 starts. That said, he's given up about a home run and a half per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate is about 3.5. His fielding independent is more than double his ERA. It's hovering right around about a 4.55 in comparison to his 2.22 ERA. Now, the one place where this could go wrong, the Seattle Mariners have been absolutely lights on the bullpen, and they have turned into the West Coast version of the Tampa Bay Rays in that they find these just cast-off pitchers and they turn them into really good relievers. This year, Tyson Miller along Cody Bolton have done a nice job of bolting down the door. Guys like Gabe Spire, Taylor Cicado, Trent Thornton, they're doing amazing work, and you still have Andres Munoz as your closer. And for the Atlanta Braves, it's a solid bullpen. They're right around about 10th, 11th in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Joey Jimenez, Rossio Iglesias are good in the back half of games. You've been able to have AJ Minter give you some good innings as well. But keep in mind that for the Atlanta Braves, they did have to go to extra innings in each of their last 2 games. But this Braves team is absolutely dominating with regards to their road run production. 6.45 runs per game on the road, more than a half a run more than any other team in the big leagues. And they just don't simply have an easy out for this team. Just take a look at what they got 1 through 9 yesterday in their lineup. All but 2 guys were hitting above a 255 that's on at bat. Pretty much all but 2 guys were supplying north of a 305 on base as well. And they're doing this all with Ronald Acuna Jr. hitting just 1 home run and a 255 average thus far this season. Marcell Ozuna has been your dominator. 340 average, 9 bombs this far this season. Travis d'Arnaud has been able to supply 5 home runs as well. Everyone else has 3 home runs or less. It's not as if they're just hitting a whole bunch of bombs or anything like that. And you know that they're going to hit bombs. You had Matt Olson give you north of 50 last season. He's got just 3 thus far this campaign, but I mean, they're just finding a way with guys like Orlando Arcia, Jared Kelenic being able to give you a nice average. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, they have been able to get to at least 4 runs in now 12 out of their last 21 games. Julio Rodriguez has done a nice job, be able to find a way on base, hitting a 275. Josh Rojas is hitting a 300 as well. After it was a rough start to the season for some of these guys, they're starting to pick it up. You saw Jorge Polanco, JP Crawford hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, but Cal Raleigh's been able to give you 6 bombs and north of 300 on base. You've been able to still get with Polanco, despite the bad batting average, about a 320 on base out of him as well. Mitch Haniger, he went deep for a grand slam in that series against the Arizona Diamondbacks as well. I do think that Max Fried is going to give up his fair share of runs. I do think that the Atlanta Braves get to Bryce Miller as well, and I do think that in the end, the Atlanta Braves find a way to be able to get the job done. I'm going to be willing to back the Braves on the money line, but right up pick, that is going to be on the over. Set my total at an 8.4, and we wrap things up with 923 and 924 on the betting board. It is the Oakland A's. They play host to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bailey Falter hopes to not live up to his name for the Buccos, and Joe Boyle is on the bump for Oakland. Oakland is an underdog of any between plus 114 to a plus 120. Meanwhile, between minus 128 to minus 135, that's your number on Pittsburgh. It is the total. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The under is any between even and minus 110. And with Oakland, I'm going to be willing to back them. I made them the favorite, so going to be willing to take plus money on the A's. Though Joe Boyle has a 7.06 ERA, fielding independent is more around a 4.50. He has not allowed teams to really leave the yard. 2 home runs given up in 21 and 2/3 innings. The big thing for him has been the walks. He's given out north of 6 walks per 9 innings, but if you take a look at his starts as far this season, has been badly impacted by the fielding of the Oakland A's. Granted, that's always going to be the issue with the Oakland A's, but I feel like he's pitched much better than the results actually show through. He's honestly given up 2 earned runs or fewer in 3 out of his last 4 starts as well, so that's not too shabby. Meanwhile, Bailey Falter, 3.33 ERA. Fielding independent more than a point higher than that. He's given up 4 home runs in 27 innings, and still not a swing and miss guy. He's only getting right around about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, to the credit of him, 4 runs surrendered over the course of his last 4 starts against the Mets, Brewers, Phillies, and Baltimore Orioles. So he has been very good with that esteem, but that said, I do think that the ball's in play. Going to be catching up with him a little bit. Good news for him is that he's going up against an Oakland A's team that's in the bottom 3 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game. They just have not been able to put bat to ball, though. Actually lead the league in home runs per game away from home. Lots of solo shots with Shea Langoliers being able to give you 6 bombs. Brent Rooker has been able to supply 5, but just take a look at this overall team. You don't have guys that are really able to move the line. Tyler Nevin along with Kyle McCann. Both of these guys are hitting north of a 250, and they're the only two guys on the roster hitting north of 250. Asario Ruiz has been able to hit about a 255 as well, but Tyler Nevin is the only guy with north of 35 at-bats on the roster, hitting above a 229 and hitting for north of a 318 on base, with one other player outside of him with more than 35 at-bats with at least a 318 on base. So that's a bit of an issue, but for the Oakland A's, they're 8th in the big leagues with regards to bullpen ERA, and these guys have been incredibly impressive. Danny Jimenez, Michael Kelly, Austin Adams, they're all coming in, doing their part. Mason Miller, I still believe, should be a starter, but he has been amazing in the 9th inning, and for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it seems more around 20th in terms of bullpen ERA. Still dealing with the injury to Ryan Baruchi. Aroldis Chapman looks washed with a 6 ERA. Have not been able to get a lot of production out of guys like Hunter Stratton and company, though I still do like David Bednar as a closer, but he has not been good thus far this season as well, and I do think that the Oakland A's going to be able to get to the Pirates, Bailey Falter in that bullpen just a little bit, and I do think that there's going to be a tad bit of regression for this A's bullpen as well. It's a Pirates team that they themselves are in the bottom half of the big leagues with regards to runs per game, but that said, I do think that they're going to start to pick it up a little bit. You've got guys who are able to get on base. Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, along with Connor Joe, I'll give you at least a 360 on base. Power just has not been there. 23 home runs in 29 games thus far this campaign, with Reynolds supplying 4 home runs, being the main guy. Oniel Cruz needs to pick it up a little bit. He, along with Joe Triolo, are both giving you about a 300 on base. Rowdy Tellez has done nothing whatsoever. And Michael A. Taylor, after a hot start to the season, he's cooled down a little bit as well. But that said, I do think that they're going to get to Joe Boyle a little bit for some of those walks. And I think that both teams put up some runs, but in the end, the A's find a way to be able to get the job done. So we'll back the A's on the money line at plus money, and going to be taking a look at this 8 over. And that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Big thanks to Tanner Kern of DraftKings for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Jaden_D1. Keep in mind, Lord CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.